We are live on Move, Crush, Count. This is a podcast produced by J&L Marketing. We have a special guest, Sima Dahl. And just so I make sure, Sima, that is the correct pronunciation, correct?
Yes, Sima, like simmer down now. Dahl rhymes with shawl.
and you should know, I only know that, all right, because I learned it on your webinar. All right, because I was learning for myself how to improve my personal brand.
It's funny because it comes from an old SNL, Saturday Night Live skit with the comedian was Sherry O'Terry, and just randomly last week she was a guest on a show I watch, and she did a whole simmer down now skit, and I was dying because when it first came out, I really didn't, I didn't connect the dots. So yeah, it's super fun.
Yeah. And so, I brought you on obviously because you're an expert when it comes to personal branding, executive coaching, corporate training. And I think, to me, there's a huge disconnect out there or misconceptions when it comes to personal branding, and should CEOs or business leaders, how much of it should they do? And so that's the main thrust of this conversation. So, but before we get into all that, I think it's important to kind of let everyone know your background and your experience level. So can you give us a little bit of that and then we'll dive in after?
Yeah, sure. High level, I am a marketer, genetically a corporate marketer. I spent the first career as a B2B corporate side marketer, working mostly, 13 of those 20 years were in high tech. So the slow, complex sales cycles of 9 to 18 months, and buyers need your product once every decade, right? It's a long-term marketing. And my career was quite volatile, to be honest. I tell people I've had more boyfriends, and more jobs than boyfriends, actually. So I got really kind of savvy without really realizing that I was always putting my name out there for the next job, always doing something to raise my visibility, to stand out, and to let others know who I was. Hey, I'm here, and here's what I do, because I knew like any minute, I'd be looking for another job. So I got good at that. And then when I went out on my own, because quite frankly, I needed a break. I had no idea I would pursue this business that I'm in. I just really wanted a time out from the corporate churn. I realized that in talking about myself in this new way, I'm over here now. I'm doing these other exciting things that I got my, thousands of people who knew me one way to follow me in a whole new light. And I realized that was something I could teach others to do. So long story short, I now help go-getters, real go-getters, be they in sales, business owners, corporate staffs, people with side hustle, your solopreneurs. If they want to stand out, make a name, and generate demand for who they are and what they do, I can help them.
So what year did you start that? When you went off on your own and said, you know what, I'm going to help people build their stuff, build their brand?
It was May 2008 that I incorporated. Okay. So coming up on an anniversary.
Yeah, so that's great. Almost 12 years. So,
yeah.
All right. So let me ask you this. Did you have any formal training, or was most of it self-taught?
Well, that's interesting. I'm a classically trained marketer. I was good at what I did. I won awards, and I had made a name for myself, certainly in the Chicagoland area, in a high-tech community. So that I knew how to do. The art of subtle self-promotion, I learned painfully. I was a awkward, self-conscious kid right out of college, and I couldn't look you in the eye, explain the heck what my name was, and talk about what I did. I couldn't do it. I could barely speak to strangers. And people find it hard to believe now when they see me on a stage or performing on a webinar or anything, but it's very true. And I'll never forget getting my first business cards at my very first job. My official title was secretary, right? With a fresh degree in my back pocket. That's all I could find. And so my earliest memory of my first business card was asking them to print marketing assistant instead of secretary because I wanted to be perceived in that light. And I've been, kind of getting better at telling my story over the years, and now I help others tell theirs.
It's interesting. I'm going to go back into something you said. You said I was trained as classic marketing. How do you define that?
Well, it was 1902. It was a long time ago. We were still teaching awareness, interest, desire, and action. When I first started my career, my solo career, I was doing some corporate training for Microsoft, and it was marketing training. And I thought, well, I'm qualified to do this. And they wanted you to teach it their way. And they had this fascinating model, this modern marketing model. And it used to be fairly linear, right? We come into the sales funnel, the sales cycle, and you come out. And I'll never forget that Microsoft model. I wish I could get my hands on it, but you pop in and out of a sales cycle a million times. And as marketers, we had to report to the CFO on where leads were coming from. You tell me, we've been touching these people for 10 years, and you want me to tell you what finally dropped them into the funnel? That last white paper was a doozy, right? So I am classically trained, but I realize that marketing today is not for the weak at heart. It takes real bravery to try new things, step out of your comfort zone, take thoughtful risk, to do everything possible to serve your ideal clients and customers.
Yeah, I would agree. So what would you say, you've mentioned Microsoft, and I'm not familiar with all the companies you work with, but let's just take the top one or two results that because I want people to fully understand. I don't want them to sit there and think we're just talking and I want them to understand some accomplishments. So what is one or two of your greatest accomplishments in terms of helping people build a personal brand and or increasing? Because in the end, we're doing this to more than likely increase sales or have some end result,
That's
right?
right.
So what would you say is your greatest accomplishment in that?
I'll give you three examples, three fast ones. Working at the individual level with an executive trying to pivot their career is difficult but rewarding work. So if you're in finance and you've just had it and you want to move into nonprofit, which was one of my first clients saying, help me with this pivot. How do I even talk about what I've done in a way that has me, considered for these new opportunities? Rethinking the way you talk about your past, rethinking the way you introduce yourself. When people say, what do you do? Not starting out with, well, for 40 years. I mean, don't take me in a direction you don't want me to land in, right? And then how you optimize your digital footprint, especially your LinkedIn, how you tell that story. So I've worked with a handful of people. One woman was going from corporate sales in starting her own business as a faith-based speaker and author. And they're all fascinating. And I enjoy helping people do that 180, whatever it is in their career. So individually, I take a lot of joy in that. I work with, United Airlines as a client, and they have a bunch of really high potential leaders and managers that can get overlooked easily because they have 50,000 employees. So from that company's perspective, how do we teach our topmost talent to make a name for themselves inside the organization as a retention strategy, which is interesting, right? How do we teach people to market themselves to one another and build, get out from behind the desk and build that internal network? And then just earlier this year, I worked with a couple hundred insurance brokers and producers. So it was an entire sales team, kickoff sales team, and every single one of them runs their own business, their own book of business. So they're mini business owners. And I'm working with the CEO and the president separately to optimize their profile because they know, and progressive thinkers understand, that before I apply to work at your company, or before or in the buying cycle as I'm comparing two options, I'm going to look at those leaders online. I want to see the passion. I want to see why they chose to build this business, what excites them most. I want to feel that energy, that culture. Call it an employer brand. But the leaders of companies need to lead by example. And playing small gets you no place fast.
So the first thing it's an interesting thing. I thought the United Airlines example was outstanding. And so because a lot of people don't think of it that way.
What just happened?
No, well, that one stuck out to me, right? Because I'm right. Familiar, and the other two, I'm like, oh yeah. But I've never really thought of it from that angle when you brought up the United Airlines in terms of just internally branding yourself. And maybe that's my own selfish thing. I've got my own dealerships and my own company, so I've never thought of it like that.
Well, associations think that way too. So take your average association, and they've got people who've been members for 20, 30 years in leadership roles. They're at the top of their career. And what are the programming options or the reason for a 20-something or a 30-something to join this old association that they think of as just like, what will I get for my membership? Well, more and more content designed for those high potential leaders is around career growth and personal brand development, because they can use that no matter where they work inside the industry. So it's interesting. It's a reason to join an association and a reason to stay. It's a retention play there as well.
So let's go back to 2008. So you got great experience, and what I like about it is it covers a lot of different things. So our audience is entrepreneurs and business leaders. So clearly there should be a huge benefit for them in listening to this. Let's go back to 2000. Let's go back to 2008. All right. And I've never interviewed or talked to any business leader that doesn't wish they could start over, because they could have gotten to the end result so much quicker if they knew then what they know now. So looking back, what are some of the mistakes you made early on in building your own personal brand that if you knew then what you know now would have shortcutted your progress there?
That's an interesting question. In keeping the focus on my personal brand, mistakes I made in hindsight. This goes back to another kind of client that I serve. Clients who come to me through the marketing department, they're looking at a sales force of, be it 50 or 500. They're sitting on thousands of dollars of corporate content assets, and all they want the sales team to do is repurpose those marketing assets, increase the return on marketing investment, and build brand names for themselves. So that play between sales and marketer. And I think the one thing I could have started doing faster and more consistently out of the gate was developing my own content. The early years, I was mostly consulting with the side of speaking. And then I slowly pivoted to now where I'm doing, keynote speaking, corporate training, and a little executive coaching. And the consulting happens into those buckets, not so much as a standalone. Ultimately I end up doing some knowledge transfer somehow. But in hindsight, I didn't do any of that for myself. And, I as life has happened, as it will, be it, caring for a sick parent, or in some people's case, it's a child. I went through an amicable but sorrowful divorce, and now I'm recoupled with my friend. All of those can interrupt a content development cycle, a content distribution cycle, and I allowed that to happen. Threw it in my hands and said, "This is the last thing I should be doing right now. I'm falling apart at the seams." But it's something I should have started sooner, and I should have never stopped.
All right, so we're going to begin. So I want to dive into now these misconceptions and just misunderstandings, we'll call them, in terms of how CEOs and business leaders think in terms of their personal brand. But before I do that, I have to give you a compliment. So normally I do this.
Take your time.
So normally I do this. We do this in person. So this show from day one has always been where either I'm going to the city of the person I'm interviewing, or they come into Louisville, and we try to hook up at iconic venues. Like we've done Muhammad Ali here, Churchill Downs.
I saw these places. They're great. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's fun experiences, a lot of the bourbon distilleries. But I'm on like my third where I have to do it, COVID style virtually, and do it this way. So I just let you know, my audio is off a little bit. So I don't know if the video and the audio are going to match. Audio wise, it sounds fine, I think. But I have to tell you, I keep looking down because I'm looking at your square on the thing, but you are looking right into it's like you're looking right at me, and you're probably thinking, why isn't he looking at me?
No, I train myself to do that. So when I'm on large meetings, I'll say, look, we can do this a couple of ways. I can acknowledge you and watch your reaction, or I can have you feel like I'm looking you in the eye. I just did a program for 12, like between 25 and $75 million businesses. It's part of the tech Vistage family of programs, if you're familiar with that. And there were so many of them. And I was like, I can do this or I can do this. And sometimes I dream about the green Zoom light in the dark of night.
I'm going to try and force myself. I keep wanting to look at you because I want to get your reactions to things. But
that's right.
But from a personal brand, and the reason I bring it up is not only to give you a compliment, I can tell you on the other end, I think it's much better. I'm trying to look into the green dot now. It's
right,
much
exactly.
better
it's hypnotizing.
receiving that conversation like this versus me looking at you on the screen and not having that eye contact. I don't know.
Right.
What would you advise there? Because a lot of people are doing Zoom meetings.
I've been doing this for years, so I mean, I'm highly trained. In either instance, my recommendation is to be clear about how you're going to behave. So, large group meeting, I will say, from time to time, I will make eye contact with you, but mostly I want to see your reactions to what I'm saying, and so I will look like this, But I tell them that up front, so they know that they're free to do the same and what to expect.
All right, so
I have a dirty little secret to confess. I am, I'll just say it. I'm a Housewives fan. I love escaping into an hour of some of that Bravo Housewives shenanigans. Those ladies are nuts, and I love it. But, so Andy Cohen hosts those shows, and he does this Watch What Happens Live every night, and he interviews the gals, and they're all on Zoom or Cisco or whatever they're on. But every one of them is just like playing with their hair, and they're sucking in there. And I was like, you all look ridiculous. Just stop it. So I usually tell audiences, I might fidget a bit. You might see my green screen quiver, but it's just me. And I'm going to be the goofball that you come to know and love, or the one you're about to meet. I can't try to be perfect on these things. That's what I tell. She's bringing it full circle. What a great podcast guest. I tell people, business owners, your goal is not to be perfect or the face of the business or all polished and buff online. Your goal is to be you, the human being that cares, that is mission driven, that would, that wants to hire the best, retain the best, talk about the clients you serve. I don't care if you started in the mailroom or you inherited the company. You wouldn't still be at the helm if you couldn't command people and lead businesses. And what makes you tick? What do you do in your free time? I want to fall for the individual. I want to get to know them, like them a little, and think I can trust them. And so when we see CEOs show up online, somebody else has written it, it's third party, like, Bill is responsible for the chairman, CEO, founder, and co-president. Like, none of that matters, right? None of it matters. Who are you? What are you building? Who do you serve? And how exciting is that for you? Because if you're not passionate to do the work you do, I'm super not excited to get to know you any better. Right. And so that's important for the frontline sales team, and also for the firm leaders who should feel that same sense of pride and passion. I call it your character, your competence, and your charisma. Got to show a little leg.
Yeah. And so
That was a
I'm going
long
to take
rant.
your own advice. No, I love it. And so I'm going to it takes the pressure off of me. I could just sit and learn. And so
I'm an only child.
I'm
I
going
can talk to myself for days. You don't want that to happen.
to, I'm going to take your advice, but I'm going to do it about, instead of up front, I'm going to do it about 10 to 20% in, and just let you know that I'm going to be looking at you on screen, because I don't have that discipline that you have yet.
Well, I also have your video right under the light, right? So like if I just look down for a second, I can see you, as opposed to you're over there, over there. You're right there.
Ah, nice. Well, I've got to do the recording thing. And so
You just stay focused on your job. I don't want to think. I don't want you to say, "Oh shoot, I forgot to record." What did you say? I don't actually know.
All right. So let me ask you, what is, and I asked this because I went through this. And so what would you say is the number one misconception when it comes to that business leaders have when it comes to building their own I think all business leaders understand the importance of building a corporate brand. Yeah. But what would you say the number one misconception or misunderstanding is for business leaders when it comes to building their own personal brand?
All right. So what they tell me is they don't like to share. A lot of people are just genuinely private. They tell me that they don't want the spotlight. It's about the team. But the progressive ones, the minute I say your personal brand, your employer brand, because recruiting is going to be, well, it has been difficult to find top talent, and now it's going to be just an interesting, messy place. So your employer brand and you, the man or woman, pulling the levers, making things happen, your leadership team has to walk the talk. And so I don't care if you never share a photo of you and your grandkids, or the sorority reunion or whatever. You don't have to share anything that's personal and uncomfortable, but share how you're wired and what makes you tick. That's an important part of the equation. So, this experience of me Googling you and your firm, I'm going to find the heads of the company, and the top 3 search results are your LinkedIn profiles. So I'm going to see your website. I'm in the research phase of the buy cycle, which some 66% or more of that happens before you even get the phone call, or somebody rolling up into your lot to look at cars. It's all done in advance, and I want to see you and feel like, wow, that is someone I would probably like and I can trust. And it's so important. And the polished third-party corporate resume on your website doesn't do you justice. I want first person. I want pride. I want you to be inseparable. Business and personal go hand in glove. So online, when you have a personal page, you talk about yourself as a person, and you're the leader of a company, and that's part of your story. Whereas the company pages on LinkedIn, online, company pages on Facebook, they can be a general voice. But when I want to learn about you, I better hear your voice.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there. And so I can tell you, for a long time, I resisted. I was always on LinkedIn, but not in the right way. I wasn't worried I was just about connecting and networking and finding sales opportunities, right? It wasn't about building relationships or worrying about what my brand was. I didn't even think about my own personal brand. I just wanted to connect people from point A to point B with my company. And so I didn't, and even with Facebook, because that was the first social media channel I would have been on, right? And so I can tell you, I always use the excuse of Facebook's my personal thing. I don't want to bombard those up with business and stuff like that. And so the reality is, though, if you don't grab attention today, there are too many people that you probably compete against that will just run right by you. And I went to an interesting conference from very smart man and extremely good social media marketer. And he basically said it this way. He goes, you know what, Facebook, he goes, I don't need friends. I don't need to be with my friends on Facebook. I can call them. He goes, I use it for business and I use it to get myself out there. And I want people to know all the things you just said, because.
All right. Well, I'm somewhere in the middle there. I'm going to just interject.
Me too.
So I remember the day my very first client tried to become my friend on Facebook. And there was a moment of panic because I didn't want to decline the connection, but I had to think about, well, he's going to know I'm an absolute lunatic. My humor is dry and twisted, self-deprecating, and I do silly things, and I go out to shows and concerts all the time, and I'm so Sima on Facebook. And then my next thought was, but he already knows that. He's my client. Like, you know that about me. We've only been speaking for 20 minutes. What am I really worried about? That he knows that I love my dog and that I drink wine in the morning for breakfast when I'm in international airports. Like, what? This is nothing to hide. And so through trial and error, I did accept his friendship request, and I told him how much it meant to me. And here's what I've learned for Facebook. For me, everybody knows which way I lean, little left, little right, okay? It's easy to tell, but no religion and no reproductive rights, and we're all gonna get along fine. Oh, and no politics, clearly. Let's not get started. Those three things, politics, religion, and reproductive rights, I don't talk about online. That's my choice. I will also similarly not listen to anybody screaming on Facebook in all capital letters in either direction of those arguments. It doesn't make me joyful, right? So that's me on Facebook. And people always used to say, well, they're not really my friend. Maybe I can drive them over to LinkedIn. They come up with clever phrases like, thank you, I keep Facebook for my small network of blah, blah, blah. Won't you connect with me on LinkedIn? You can do that. But here's what's different today. We are all 2 to 3 degrees of separation, every one of us. And while right now, I don't know anybody personally looking for or in a position to buy services from you, that doesn't mean in 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years, right? I will. I absolutely will. And if all I know of you is our random Facebook connections, the largest deal I closed in my first year of business was a referral, true story, from a kid I had gone to high school with and hadn't seen in the 30 odd years. Something like that, maybe 25. I forget how old I am, and let's not do the hard math today. But it had been so long, and this client drops into my brand new little baby company, a little funnel, and he used the info at email address, and I didn't even know where to look for those. And I found it like a week later. I'm like, clickety click on the, and finally I said, this is great. I'm going to really enjoy working with you. As an afterthought, might I ask how you found me? And he said, Dirk referred you. I'm like, I don't actually know anybody named Dirk. He said, yeah, you went to high school with him. What? How does Dirk know what I do today? He knows because every blue moon, I mention it on Facebook, right? So Facebook's like the backyard barbecue for me. LinkedIn's the corporate event, business card in every pocket. And Twitter's somewhere like a cocktail party. Like, don't drink and drive or win the lampshade award, but make conversation, be fun, right?
I feel like Twitter has become the angry cocktail party where people drank a little too much. But yeah, I'm on there too. But it's but Facebook, we're very similar in this, and so Facebook, because I started on the friendship side, I've added the corporate, and I even went through a stage several years ago. Horrible. I look back at it and laugh now, where I created the list. Oh, I'm going to file these under the corporate list, and they won't see all the things.
Yeah.
Horrible.
And you're working so hard to bifurcate your network, and everybody wants the same for you. people who are connected to you, and this is my law of abundance theory on the universe, for social media, everybody wants to give you comfort when you're suffering and to celebrate your wins and have some laughter along the way. And if you have that in your heart, there's no wrong thing to post or share. Just the other day, in fact, thank you, pandemic, I lost a really lovely opportunity. It was a woman who heard me speak 5-6 years ago, and we're connected on Facebook. I don't see her often. It's not like we're chatting daily, but she hit me up in a direct message. She's like, I'll never forget this talk you delivered. Are you still doing that? I want to recommend you to my boss. And then the follow-up note I got from her about my fees came via text. So between Facebook and text, I'm angling for the inside track on a significant engagement. We can't shut out people who want to be in orbit with us and enjoy the ride together. I don't know how I got on that story, but it's true. I don't want a CEO to listen to our chat today and say, oh man, Sima says I have to go on Facebook. No, you don't. But if you're there, maybe every blue moon, remind the people who know, love, and support you exactly what it is you do, and celebrate your successes, celebrate your team. And it's the water cooler, it's a barbecue. How to lighten up, right? Yeah.
So a couple of questions to this. A couple questions with this. What do you say to the CEO or business leader that, let's go directly to the point, because I can tell you, I was so worried about doing videos, and I was so worried about what other people would think of me and thinking, oh, there he is trying to make it about him and promoting him and stuff like that. That I stayed away from it. And it was a big mistake that set me back for several years. And so what do you say to those business leaders? How do they get over that hump, and why should they?
All right. So maybe let's just use the example of a 1-minute video. Let's say it's a 1-minute video on LinkedIn. And you don't want to make it all about you. Don't make it all about you. Talk about changes happening in the industry. Talk about how your company is responding and coping. Share something from the heart, or your vision, or even we're thinking about a pivot. The best way I can explain it is XYZ. Let us know what you think. What other services? Just building community and engagement. It's not like, here's what I'm thinking, but it can be. I'm a company with one full-time employee, and you're looking at her, and a crackerjack virtual team. So the onus is on me, but the CEO, she can have anybody else on her leadership team, people on, on the front lines. When you have your employees, and this is statistically true, people believe what your employees say about your business. I don't know how many more times. I don't want to make it up, but I don't remember. It's like 10 times more than any press release you could put out, anything you could say in a blog. When your staff share, it's exciting to work here. Here's what we're doing. I just got promoted. It's my 10th year here, celebrating. All of that lifts your business brand up. So I think not only do CEOs make a mistake by not sharing a little leg of their own, but in discouraging, or at least not encouraging, their very own team members to be loud and proud online about who they are and what they do, because that personal brand builds the employer brand and supports the business brand. I just think that's hand in glove the way the world now works.
Yeah, 100% agree. I had a conversation with a person I work with, and I was like, why don't you promote more of because we got a lot of content out there from a corporate standpoint. And I'm like, why don't you promote some of this stuff, right? And she says to me, I want my LinkedIn to be about my own personal brand. And she wasn't real active on it, and I'm fine with that. But I can tell you from an employer's point of view, looking at people that I'm connected to, my opinion, let's say we're connected. And so let's say you're out there and you're just constantly pushing content and you're supporting the company you're working with and stuff like it. My opinion of you, your personal brand, right, elevates so much to,
That's right.
a potential future employer. So one of the best things I think any employee could do is to share their own, because future employers, they want people like that.
Right, right. And I would say there's a happy medium. So let's say I was a marketer, so that's just how I think. So if I'm working for, like one of my first jobs out of school was, sorry, in the dawn of the internet days, was for one of the first like web developers that we built the first Sears.com and major cars.com, major projects. The man who founded that company went to school with Mark Andreessen, and together they worked on Netscape. So it was really early. I was in marketing for that firm, dabbling in project management, and I would talk about how exciting it was for me to build marketing campaigns to show off the company's work. So everybody wins. I'm reminding you I'm a marketer. This is the cool stuff I'm doing right now in support of the company's business. I mean, I don't want to just talk about me. I don't want to just talk about the company. I want a win-win. And that's something that the CEOs on your podcast listening right now can teach their staff how to do. And I don't post, if you follow me, I post about once a week on LinkedIn. I'm usually daily or every other day on Facebook. It's my backyard barbecue. I'm having fun. LinkedIn, I post once a week, but I do it consistently. Yes, I fall off my own wagon when life happens. But when you post once a week, the LinkedIn secret behind the door algorithms see you as somebody who shares content, and so your visibility goes up. And I find it takes a week for your network to catch up with you. If you're posting something every single day, it's too much. It's a fire hose. I know you are, but it's too much for me. I'll post something and it gets no traction in 24 hours. I'm like, man, that one was a dud. And then the next day, people are engaging with that content, and then their engagement drives further engagement. Then I start getting LinkedIn inbound invitations, and how do you even know me? Oh, my buddy left a comment on one of your posts, and I'd love to learn more. Oh, that's winning. But it takes a few days because people aren't in LinkedIn, writing LinkedIn. I'm not even doing that in my email anymore. Like I've checked it twice a day. So if I check LinkedIn, the average user isn't in LinkedIn all day. So I have a slower cadence than you, but it's all good. Whatever feels right. Just the fact that you're posting is the win. It's the people who post once a year and don't understand why no one sees it. Like, because that's not enough.
I try to make sure I only post something I think can help. I don't like posting a bunch of ads. Every now and then I'll sprinkle in an ad for a workshop or usually a free webinar or something like that. But usually really try to, whether it's a blog article or, some type of white paper or something like that saying, hey, here's some stuff. And, but yeah, I really want to be just helpful.
Here's the secret. For folks who don't have a marketing agency like you do behind them, you're prolific, you write, you create content, it's a natural gift for you, yeah? For the CEO who's not that person, I tell them to simply look at the statistics in your industry. How many newsletters do you subscribe to? Take a juicy nugget of content and share that on LinkedIn, but comment first. All you have to do is say, I love this article's take on how the automobile shopping experience will be forever different because of, and get the keyword in there. What's the keyword? In this case, automobile, or it's retail, or you're a marketer, or what's your thing? How do you want to be known? You have to remind me. And here's the secret. You said, what have I learned over the years? I've learned that my job is to share and let go of the outcome. I don't look for, I don't track click-throughs on random statistics I share. I just know that if you're interested, click it. Most people are busy. I don't care if, quite frankly, you ever read the entire thing, but I'm staying top of mind. I'm using keywords and phrases to gently jog your memory, right? To get etched into what I call your mental Rolodex. So right now, young people listening are Googling the word Rolodex, right? But that's the goal. And so if you do that in a couple sentences, you share third-party content or you write your own. The name of the game is to post and let go of the outcome.
I love that. Let go of the outcome.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is this. So, because it leads right into one of my questions I wanted to ask you. So what do you say to the CEO, anybody, it doesn't matter. They want to they believe in the social media thing. They want to use that to help build their brand, because in my opinion, it's much easier to build a personal brand today because of social media than say years prior. But
Right.
let's say there's no engagement and they spend, let's face it, most people don't follow through all the way to the end to get the reward. And so in even highly successful people that are used to getting maybe results a little quicker than most,
Sure.
and now they are for a month or two, and let's face it, it's sometimes a lot longer than that to build an audience and to get the type of engagement you really want. What do you say to the people that engagement is not there? The CEO puts himself out there, finally puts himself out there, and literally they may have 1 or 2 likes and it's not much. They get discouraged.
Right. Well, so I gently remind those go-getters that listening is an action verb, especially with respect to social media platforms. Just because I'm not clicking your stuff doesn't mean I didn't hear you. And so we have to believe that in staying, my company tagline is stand out, stay relevant, be in demand. And the only way you can create demand for who you are and what you do is if people know what that is. So you have to stand out by sharing content, stay relevant to what people need to know now, how you serve, who you serve, the milestones, expanding your plants, grand opening on your 3rd store, whatever it is, to stay top of mind and stay relevant. Because when somebody phones you, if a bluebird drops in your lap and you think to ask, how did you find me? And it's somebody that you don't even know who's just been hanging on your every word online, but never thought to click anything. That's the proof, right? That's the proof. So you have to have a little faith. I saw you interviewed some people with huge, huge followings. And it's easy to think that you're not doing it right if you don't have that kind of following. But in the average, small to medium-sized business, you don't need an international following of people who are in no way, shape, or form truly ever able to engage with you in a meaningful way. So if you have, in your case, like a dealership or a local business, you want to be well-known locally. And so just think about your real true goals and let go of some of the, I know marketers hate to talk about measurement, but let go of some of the need to see a direct correlation between I posted something, I sold something, because it doesn't exist, unless you're posting, some toilet paper to spill off the back of a truck. You just won't see that immediate connection.
I'm going to ask you this because we're in slightly different industries here. And so I find that in our industry, people mainly associate me on the agency side more than they do owning 3 dealerships.
Yeah.
And because most of my posts tend to go on the agency side. And so what I find is I have a lot, when I talk to clients, I know the dealers are out there, they don't always engage. They stalk.
That's
they
right.
Pay attention. But the vendors that we compete, they're all interacting with each other and talking, building up the brands and high-fiving each other. And I'm part of that. But I'm asking you, in your industry, do you find that same thing, that a lot of your interactions or engagement aren't always necessarily clients, but the clients are paying attention? Am I saying that right?
I hear you. You're in an interesting place because you do a lot of work from the agency with people who also have dealerships. I mean, that's right? You still serve that market. So
Correct.
you can still talk about that market from a position of power and having been there, done that. Now I serve people just like you who have the same needs I did as a dealer owner. For me, the conversation is often, look, I didn't know how to promote myself, couldn't walk and chew gum. I literally have a story about going to the local community college Saturday morning for a 2-hour mini course I signed up for on how to network. That's a true story because I knew I was short-sheeting myself. So when I talk to people, I'm either relating to salespeople and I wear the sales hat, or I'm talking to career go-getters, and I've been there, done that. So in knowing that people who pick up what I'm putting down have similar experiences to me, I talk about the human side of that, and it's an easy connection for most. We've all shared so many life experiences that again the CEO doesn't want to admit that they failed, or share that right out of school they had no idea they wanted to be in actuarial science, and today they run an insurance company, whatever. Like that's what makes the human side of digital work. And that's the connection, to really kind of let down your guard a little and talk about what makes you tick, what you think makes your target clients tick, what they need to hear. It's just, people overthink it. They really overthink it. And my favorite question in any audience is, what time should I post? And the corporate marketer in me wants to give you some statistics about the ideal, but in social media in modern day, with people working shift jobs or being up at 2 a.m. because they're nursing a newborn, whatever it is, I think it doesn't matter. When you think to post, just do it once a week. That's all I ask. Do it once a week, any time of day or night. In the consistency of your posting, you'll get more eyeballs, and whether you know it or not, right? You can see sometimes page views go up, your profile views go up. Can you equate that to sales? Not immediately. So there's a leap of faith that has to happen to embrace social media and actually have it be a working part of your brand strategy.
Yeah. So you touched on this a little bit earlier in the sense of, because one of the questions I definitely wanted to ask you is, what is the benefit to the business if a business leader, executive, CEO builds their personal brand? And you had already mentioned, well, you got future people you could be recruiting, right?
That's right.
To employ. So, but what are some of the other benefits? What are some of the biggest impacts to the business by building your own personal brand?
It's interesting. So many opportunities can happen, may happen. For example, you become a leading voice on small businesses in the Detroit area, and you get featured on news or in media coverage in some way, or you become invited to speak or to contribute a column. Maybe you're a CEO who separately wrote her own book, and you don't want to promote that because you really should be promoting the business. But when you let people know this business is run by a rock star, right, who is passion and mission driven and committed, then that becomes part of your brand, your business brand attributes. Back in the day, as a fellow marketer, we didn't have all these clever marketing tools. We had story. And that's why PR was so important as a critical route to establish your brand. It was third-party people talking about your business. Like, think back in the cave days, it was all word of mouth. And so flash forward, we can do clever, dimensional direct mail and all the things. But we can also use a story digitally and share those stories in rapid fire sequence. It just helps. Here's what I say. It helps amplify everything you're doing well. If you're doing nothing well, social media will not save your hide. No, it will not. But if you have a smart business that serves a target buying community well, then social media can 10x the speed with which people understand and come to know that. And you do that yourself, and your employees do that themselves, right? Because It's in the first person telling that we come to believe it.
Yeah, I agree
That's a long
100%.
answer. Did I get it?
No, because it was all good. So let me ask you
Okay.
this: where you got CEOs that are like, all right, I'm all in. I love this. I've got to get better at this, right? I got to build my personal brand. And then they sit back and do a bunch of stuff.
Overthink it.
Where do you see most of them? Where's the big waste of time that people that they make mistakes trying to build the brand? Where do they waste their time?
They waste their time to figure out a long-term strategy and a rolling plan. The way I got started was one step at a time. One step at a time. It takes work. And once you start, the work never ends. It gets easier, but it's a slow build. So
Yeah.
wherever you're comfortable starting, here's a challenge for everybody listening right now. Google yourself, and wherever there's an about me section, wherever you have signed up, wherever you've joined, be it your own corporate website or LinkedIn, maybe secretly on Snapchat or Pinterest, I don't care. But wherever I find you online, if there's an opportunity to fill out the little box that says tell people about yourselves, make sure those 2 or 3 sentences are on brand for you, the business person. The business person has a personal brand and duty to the business. So you have to convey who you are and in what capacity you serve. And that's both as a leader and also as the business itself. You have to walk both lines. And so they pour too much energy into, well, I like golfing and I'm a caffeine addict and all kinds of personal share, which isn't quite right. Or they go all in. We are a top, 100 fastest growing company that does X. I need you to meet me in the middle.
So this might sound like an odd question. So, I brought up early that I just think it's easier to build your own personal brand today, just simply because of the tools we have from
That's
a
right.
social aspect. But would you say, what are the big challenges that exist today in building a personal brand that maybe didn't exist back 10 years ago?
It's not an odd question or a weird question, but now I feel compelled to come up with an odd or weird answer, which is going to take some thinking. Here's the challenge.
It doesn't have to be weird.
Would it be weird if I just made funny eyes the whole time? That'd just be weird, and also I'd get dizzy. When I started my business, I was a marketing consultant, right, for B2B companies, helping them with their messaging and their branding and executing right on marketing campaigns. That's what I've done my whole life. Only I started doing that for myself. And the iterative process of talking about someone else as a company evolves. So one of my earliest clients was going through a rebrand. They were changing their name, changing their logo, their go-to-market strategy, everything. And that's so exciting for a marketer, right? Like you get in, you get your hands dirty. But we too, we people, we evolve. And so I started talking about social networking because the language around personal branding or social selling didn't really exist. And what would happen is I would give a program on social networking, and people would come up to me afterwards and say, all right, between you and me, I don't know what to say. I have no idea how to talk about myself. And that is still the hardest part of all of this. And so people don't take action. They leave significant areas of their online profile story blank because, ew, it's awkward and I feel cheesy. And so maybe here's the weird part.
Perfect.
How I address that with an individual or a room full of people is I say, do you believe you help people? Do you believe in your work? I mean, do you look in the mirror and say, I'm going to help somebody today? Do you feel that in your heart? Well, if so, if you are wired to serve, to be benevolent, and most of us are, then it's your job to let other people know how you can do that. It's your job function to help as many people as possible. And in order to do that, to, make sure they have the best widgets or cars or dental equipment or whatever it is, then you got to let people in on the secret. That is you. You can't be a secret. So, however you come at it, I'll dial back to that networking mini course I took at the local community college, because I was such an awkward, like, up in my head gal. It was ridiculous. The lady said, first she said, introduce yourself to the person next to you. And I'm like, girl, if I could do that, I wouldn't be in this class at 8 a.m. on a Saturday morning. Like, I don't know what to say. And then she went on about the secret to networking is to talk to people, and then TTP, like, that's the acronym. And then it was TTMP, talk to more people. Now it's 8:30. I still haven't learned a darn thing. I might have had a slight hangover. I was young, and I want my money back. And then she said the thing that stayed with me for the rest of my life. If putting your hand out to a stranger puts them at ease, imagine the world is as awkward as this as you are, and you lead by example and you say, hey, I don't know anybody here, what's your name? If you just can do that, imagine that you're saving that person from feeling as crappy as you do. I would go around that room and shake 100 hands to save people from feeling as crappy as I did in that moment. And it flipped the switch for me. And so I want people to have the same flip switching moment with respect to personal brand. If you have a solution that can help people, who are you not to share it, right? And we buy from people. We buy from people, not businesses. So let your light shine, darn it. That's as earthy as I get.
I love, first off, you give great stories. And I'm just going to tell you right now, I'm going to ask a couple more questions. But when things return to somewhat, when we're allowed to talk to someone again in person, right. You're still in Chicago, right?
I am.
All right.
I'm never leaving.
I'm either coming up there or you're coming to Louisville, and we're going to do this in person, because I think we could keep going on this for a long time. And just going back to your last answer at the beginning, you had mentioned, how about people that feel very uncomfortable in front of the camera? Yeah. I can associate to that 100%, because
me too. I just started doing this.
Oh, it's horrible. Like when you're first starting off, you're so worried about what other people are going to think of you, because it's about building your brand, and you're just, it's really, it can be very uncomfortable.
It is one small uncomfortable moment at a time. So I know video is important. I know I'm a professional speaker. I don't have a YouTube channel. This is a situation for me, okay? And so I'm working on that, because I'm getting more comfortable. But I made a pledge. It was 3 years ago. And I made a pledge that before the end of the year, I would post a video to LinkedIn. True story. So it was a sunny day. I was going to a public networking event. So I had my game face on. And you know how sometimes you look so right in the car? So I hold up my phone and I shot like a 2-minute selfie video. And I posted it to LinkedIn and I said, okay, everyone, I made a pledge to myself. It's now December 22nd. The clock is ticking. So this is my first at bat. Be gentle, but I'm welcome to constructive feedback. And you know what? They booed at me. They laughed at me, and a bunch of puppies died. And I'm just kidding. None of that happened. People said, oh, next time, turn the camera the other way. Or I think you look great, but maybe take off your sunglasses. I was like, oh, yeah, good point. I mean, I'm not an idiot, but I was so nervous. And I just said, hey, I'm going to try this thing. And no puppies were harmed in my first really pitifully done LinkedIn video. Not a one. So, get out of your own way. That's what I say.
You and I were talking before we went live with this, and you asked me if I had done any podcast where I also simultaneously went live on Instagram or Facebook. And so I did. And where that happened was I had built, and this would have never happened if I had not put myself out there with these videos and the content. But I've really developed, I would say, friendships. I mean, I consider
I
some of
believe
these
it.
people, yeah, truly to be friends. And it's all happened on social media. And so when I did this, when we had our big trade show and convention, you know, we've got our company booth. We've got about, it's pretty, I mean, it's expansive booth. And so we set up an area in there where we did the Move Crush Count live, and I had the booth in the background, and we just did interviews, and we said, well, we'll record it, but let's go live while we shoot it. Because I've got to get better at live. And so we did
We
that.
all
And
do. We all do.
so, you know, yeah, I'm not the greatest at live. And so I've got to work on that. But in an interview format, it was much easier, and it was a way to get that kind of going.
Yeah.
So it's, but none of that, I would have never gotten to that comfort stage, I don't think,
Yeah.
had I had not formed those friendships that all started from, you know, just getting started, like you said.
Absolutely. I was an early, no, let me say that accurately. I was a late adopter of Twitter. And I used to spend quite a bit of time on it, and I had to find the right balance. So a lot of tweets are scheduled using content assets I've created. And then when I'm there, right? So, you know, and I try to be there every blue moon, but I can get sucked in with best of them and chase every link and read every article. And oh my gosh, the funny hashtags that people come up with during the day, like I would rather, you know, fill in the blank than, you know, whatever, eat it. Like, I'm fascinated right now with steakums on Twitter. Like, they've become the voice of sanity during the pandemic. It's crazy. So I can lose time. So I have to be smart about social. I'll automate certain things, but I never automate how I show up on LinkedIn ever. And when I am there and I post something and you see there are 75 comments, half of them, the math didn't work, but 76 comments, half of them are me responding back to people because I want to be the human being that acknowledges you, the human being, you know, and even just a thumbs up, like acknowledge, like now we can tap back on text messages. Just, I like that idea, or hey, I appreciate the sentiment, give you a little heart. We need to be heard. We need to be heard. And so that's a big part of like a strategy that works for me. Does it take longer? Yes, it does. You know, do people come out of the woodwork 6, 7 years later and tell me, we'd like to come have you speak at our company, or I would like to introduce you to someone who's looking for someone just like you? Yeah, it works. And it feels good. You know, the human connection and all of this. I will tell you, we are all stepping out of our comfort zone one step at a time. You know, you mentioned my webinar yesterday. I did my first public small fee webinar because I really only want people to have skin in the game to show up. Again, I can talk to myself. So if I'm going to be talking to you, I better know that you're going to do something with the knowledge I'm dropping. And then I'm going to do my first on-demand group coaching course. And then I'm going to do my first, not on-demand, live coaching course, and then turn that into an on-demand course. And will I make mistakes 1,000 times over? So for the CEO, the leaders, the professionals who are looking at social media and saying, I can't do this, I'm going to screw it up, I'm going to break the internet. Well, you know what? Join the long list of people who have gone before you, have done all those same things. Like, you have to just right size it. What'd you write down?
I wrote something down from your webinar yesterday. All right.
Yeah.
And so it goes right to this. I wrote a lot down, not just this, but you know, hey, Sima, who do you know who can help me with blank? ... Yeah.
It's your ellipsis. Own your ellipsis. Who do you know who ... You're the ... You just have to let me know. Gently remind me once a week. Right?
Yeah. And so your point to that was, listen, if you're in social media, but your network doesn't know you as that person.
Right.
You're not doing it right. I mean, that's
and this is for job seekers too. Like, a lot of my early career started helping people who were looking for work because I'd been that gal so many times. And I'd say, you got to share with your network. First of all, you're out of work and nobody wants to share that. Why? You know, maybe I just got really used to it with all the different layoffs and mergers and acquisitions and .com blowups. But anyway, you have to let your network know so they can help. And saying heads down today on my job search serves no one. Heads down today on my job search keep your ears open for ... That's the winning post. And that's how people get referred and hired, right? Word of mouth referrals are the secret weapon to sales, to finding jobs, to everything. It's the social media secret weapon, is be specific. And what I tell people is, if you're not willing, you can't get from the universe if you're not willing to ask for it, period. So if you're unwilling to share what kind of job you're looking for, the subtle ask, then don't expect anybody to help you find it. That's it.
That's great.
Bottom
All
line.
Final thing here. So I am a business leader. I'm looking to get started. I need to take my personal brand to a whole new level. What do you do to motivate me to get started?
Well, you're either a go-getter or you're not. That's first things first. So if you're a go-getter and you're committed to do this, what I would have you do is get over yourself, put time on your calendar, and set a timer, 30, 40 minutes, and just update those abouts. The about, how do you want to be known? I do an exercise. Let me see, I'm probably breaking the thinly veiled office mess behind me. But I do an exercise where I use these cocktail napkins. And they're just little branded napkins. And I hand them out and I say, write down on the front how you want to be known. Just do that. And make sure if I read that list to myself out loud, however, that I understand what a lead looks like for you. What does a lead look like for you personally and you, the business owner? And when you've got that set of 5, 6, maybe 8 keywords and phrases, everything you do should revolve around that. And that makes it pretty easy.
That was awesome. And I have to tell you, you bring up this cocktail napkin, I literally got off the phone last week with a person and talking about personal brand, right? He goes, "Oh, you're the bourbon guy." And I thought, oh,
yeah,
no.
You are.
Well, I live in Louisville, so but I don't want to be known as that. But I guess I need to moderate my post. I got to pay more attention to that. But actually, I don't mind it. It's a fun thing.
Everything's easier with a glass of bourbon. Come on.
It is. It really is. I've got a group where we're creating a mastermind. We're calling it the Fourth Box. And so this is so funny that
I saw this with the chairs.
It all came from literally we doing these Zoom online group meetings where I'm bringing in dealers and general managers, service managers, and we're just bringing up tough challenges that they've got right now. But I really want them coming up with their own solutions and helping each other, which is what's happening. And so
I was excited because you said fourth box, and I thought it meant 4 boxes of wine. But that's not what it
It's not, but it could easily graduate to that. So so we sit there, and the guy I'm coordinating this with, Sandy Cerami, he sends me a meeting request for Friday. The meetings are always on Thursday. He sends me one for Friday at 5:30 to 6:30, and he titles the meeting Business and Bourbon. And I'm like, I'm in. So I get out there, and I got a little place off my home office where I can do a cigar, and I got bourbon. Yeah. Literally by the end of this hour, and all we're doing is having fun. But the brainstorming was phenomenal. Right. And so I literally pages of notes of ideas, and we're like, yeah, we could do this. We need to do that. And we started. So then we invited another guy. We had 3 guys in, Jamil Zabaneh. And then we have this empty box on the Zoom where there should be a 4th box. And they said, we need to invite someone in, like a deal. So we've got our first one going this Friday. We're all excited about it. But it's just listen, you
bourbon and business. I'm down.
Business, bourbon, cigars. You don't need all 3. You need at least 2 of the 3.
I like it.
So, but that's what we're doing. But I want to thank you for graciously sharing your experience, your knowledge.
Oh, it was an honor. Totally my pleasure.
So, listen, I think a lot of people will learn from what you did today. And I mean what I said. I do want to do this in person.
All right. So I've been thinking about this. If you come to Chicago, I'm going to entertain you on the 80th floor of the AN building. Stunning views our Lake Michigan and on the architecture is built. But I'm kind of I've only been to Louisville once, and it was very brief. It was for business, so I'm kind of thinking I should come to you.
Either way, it's an hour
Yeah.
flight. We've got Churchill Downs, Muhammad Ali. We've got all the distilleries if you drink bourbon. So, you know.
Yeah, we're down. That sounds fun. That sounds fun.
So it's a great time. So thanks again for having us. We need to do this again as soon as things kind of get normal. Let's do it in person.
My pleasure.
All right. Thank you.
All right. I'll be following you online. And anybody has any follow-up questions, they can find me online, simadahl.com.